Good morning. I welcome you to this session of Python programming. Today we are going to discuss file handling in Python. So the first question would be, what is file handling and why is it required? Well, you see, while you are writing your Python programs, the data that is being generated in the programs is not being stored anywhere. So if you want to store that data which is being generated through your Python programs, then you can take the help of file handling. You've been familiar with this concept as you learnt it in C++ in the previous semester. So I won't be going into too much details of what file handling and why it is required, because I think you would be very clear about this concept. And the various operations that we can perform on the files would be opening a file, closing a file, reading from a file, and writing to a file. For this purpose, there are various file opening modes which are available in Python. I'll be listing the important ones. There is a read mode in which you can read from a file. There is a write mode in which you create a new file. There is an append mode in which you add to an already existing file. And there is a read binary and a write binary modes which deals with the binary files, which I'll come up in my subsequent videos on file handling. In this today's video, we'll be discussing about text files. So to open a file, we use the open function, and to close the file, we use the close function. And for reading and writing to and from files, we have got the read and the write functions. And we'll also be discussing simple programs based on file handling. So let me just begin a Python session for you guys. And let's work around with a few programs in files so that you are clear about the concept of file handling in Python. So I'll be opening the first program. So this is like if I want to write something into a file, some text into a file. This example would illustrate that. Say this first syntax is opening the file. So open function is used here, which has got two arguments. The first one is the name of the file, and the second one is the mode in which the file is to be opened. So I'm using the W mode. That means I'm going to create a text file agc.txt. And if this file already exists, then its previous contents are overwritten and a new file is created. And here the variable f acts as a file pointer to the file agc.txt. And then I can take the help of the write method, which would write a string to the file. So I'm writing three strings to the file with the three write statements. And then to delink the file, that means to properly to create the file, you must use a close method here. If you don't use a close method, then you won't be able to access the file agc.txt. So let me now run this code for you. So once I run it, then the program has been executed, and obviously the file agc.txt has been created. So, and it has been created in the default path. That is, since I've not mentioned any path out here, so it is stored in the Python 37 folder. So let me just go to that folder for you guys and open this file for you. So you can see this file agc here. Once I open it, you can see that the three strings Ajay, Sharma and agc Amritsar have been written successfully into the file. And you see that the the strings have been written one next to the other. There is no space or there is no new line character in them. All right. So let's take another example. Now here while I'm writing, I'm also inserting a new line character in the files. Okay. So let's see the output of this, and I'm storing the contents in a file agc1.txt. So the file has been created. Let me now go to that folder, just refresh it. So I can see the agc1 file now, and I can see that these strings have been put in new lines. Let me now open up another program for you, which which would help you to read from the file. So we just saw the agc1.txt file. Now there are different ways in which you can read from the file. So one method to read would be read, as shown here in this line, s is equal to f dot read. So this would read the entire contents of the file and store it as a string. So where s is a string. So I'll print s and I also print the type of s. So now it has read from the file, the three lines that we inserted, and we can see that the variable s is a string. Let's try another way of reading from a file. In this, we use the read method. Now, let me open up another example for you. Now, here I'm using a read line method. So, if I want to read from a file line by line, then I need to take the help of read line method. So, what I'm doing here is I'm first opening the file agc1.txt in the read mode, and then I'm using s is equal to f dot read line. This would read the first line from the file and it would print it, and obviously it will also tell the type of that particular variable. So that's a string, we know. Once again, if we use it for another time, then it reads the next line and so on. So it has read first the first line which stores Ajay, then the second line which stores Sharma. So there is a read method which reads the entire file as a string. There is a read line method which reads from the file on a line by line basis. Let's look for another example. Here I am taking the help of read lines method. There is a method known as read lines. So this read line method reads from the file and stores the contents as a list. Stores the contents as a list. So I'll be first using this read lines method and storing it in S. Then I'll printing the contents of S and I'll see what is the type of S. So as I've discussed, S would be a list. And then in this later part of the program, I've shown you from reading from S using a for loop. So it would print the details of the file. Let's run this now. So as you can see here, first it has shown S as a list, and then it has shown that the type of S is a list, and then it has read from S. You can see the blank lines here. So in a list, these blank lines are also read as separate this thing. That's why the output is having blank lines. Let's now take up another example. Now here what I'm doing is I'm displaying the append method for you guys. So there is a file agc1.txt. We know that the contents already in the file are Ajay, Sharma and AGC Amritsar. So once I open this file in the append mode, these contents are further added to the already existing contents. So let's run this, and the program has been executed. So let's now see the contents of the file agc1. So you can see that the CSC and the department, these strings have been appended to the file. So that is how you run the append mode of the file. Now we have seen this write method which writes a string to a file. If we want to write a list to a file, then we can take the help of write lines method. So let me just open this file and explain this content to you, this concept. So here I've got a list here with the 3 entries Ajay, Sharma and AGC Amritsar, and I'm opening a new file agc2.txt in write mode, and if I use this write lines method, let's see what happens. So the program has been executed. Now let's go to that folder and look for the contents of agc2 file. So you see there is no space. The list members are stored one next to another in the file. Okay. So let's just run it with a variation here. Let me just append a new line character here and see how this write line methods writes these strings now, the strings which are present in the list. So once again, I'm going to run this, and let me now just go through to the Explorer and open this file AGC2. So you can see that the strings are now inserted in different lines. So that is how you can use the write lines method. Now we have seen that the write or the write lines methods, they are storing strings into a file. What if we want to store numbers in a file? Okay, so let's discuss a program to understand this concept, that is storing numbers into a file. So I'm opening a file agc3.txt, and say first let me go through like this. Now I is an integer variable which ranges from 1 to 20. So if I try to use the write function to write the contents of I into the file agc3.txt, it's going to give me an error. And you can see that error. The error is that write argument must be string, not int. So what we can do is we can convert it into a string. And then, so the program runs now successfully. Let's go and see the contents of the file agc3.txt. So you can see the numbers are stored one next to the other. So we are not able to make up whether this is one full string or whether there are 20 different numbers. So what we can do is we can vary our program like this. We can add a space here. All right, we can add a space here. And now if I run it, obviously the file is stored, and we can read from this file to see how numbers have been stored. So I'm reading from this file, okay, and I can see the numbers, they are stored now with spaces. Now let us suppose that I want to do some analysis on these numbers, because let's say I want to count the number of even and odd numbers in this file. So for this, because while you be reading, this space would also be coming in between. So you need to get rid of this space if you need to analyze these numbers. So let me just open up another file for you. Now this file, I'm opening this file agc3.txt in read mode, and then in this I'm using a readline method, obviously, which is going to put it in convert it into a list, and this split would split the strings. Okay, so it would be splitting it on a the space would be removed, because space is the by default the default character for splitting. So once that is done, then we can just process the list. We can count the number of even and odd values from the list. So let me run this program for you. So you can see the output. First of all, you can see that the S is a list in which the space has been split. So now we just see the values, and obviously they are strings, so to process them I can convert them to int, and then I can count the number of even and odd values. So in this way we have seen in today's session that what is file handling and what are the various modes in which file can be opened. The read, write, append modes. There are read binary and write binary also, which we'll discuss in our next video. And then writing to a file can be done with a write method or a write lines method. Reading can be done either through the read line or the read lines method. And then we can process or analyze the data present in the file. We can store strings, we can store numbers also, but then we need to take care of certain things, because everything that we store in a file is a string. And to process it, we need to do the usual conversions that would be required. So that's all for today's lecture on file handling. In the next session on file handling, I'll be discussing a few programs with you, and I'll also be discussing how to use the binary files instead of text files, how binary files can be read and written into. Thank you all.